Today we're looking at essential question number 6. What is the purpose of applying grammar and mechanics skills in my writing? As you probably noticed yesterday, I'm going fairly quickly through these. These have been done in multiple 9 weekses, so this is sort of the one last hurrah review. The expectation is that you shouldn't have errors on your publication in any of these areas. We're in the convention section looking at verbs and their subjects. So we're going to first look at learning target number 3. Under conventions, find and correct inappropriate shifts in subject-verb agreement, in verb tense. And then we're going to look at learning target under conventions number 6, find and correct mistakes in subject-verb agreement. First, let's talk about find and correct inappropriate shifts in verb tense. That means you need to make sure that you use the same tense throughout your writing. If you do change tenses, it's with the proper clue words that signal the shift in time. Otherwise, especially if you're writing in research in your notes should all be written, your paraphrases should all be written in the present tense. The only time you don't worry about this is when you are direct quoting from your article. In your poetry, if you pick past tense, you stay in the past tense throughout. Present tense, stay in the present tense throughout. Future tense, stay in the future tense throughout, unless you have proper clue words there. Let's look at a brief practice on IXL to help us figure out staying in the proper verb tense. So this says, the following text does it have an inappropriate shift in verb tense? And if so, fix it. And then obviously, if not, leave it alone. Although most people usually associate penguins with Antarctica, many penguins actually lived along the coasts of Africa, Australia, and South America. So in this, it's taking the proper present tense with this boldface verb, associate. However, we have a shift here whenever we have it going lived. So let's see if there's any clue words that make this shift acceptable. Although most people associate penguins with Antarctica, many penguins actually lived along the coast of Africa, Australia, and South America. Now, I'm not seeing any specific clue word that would indicate that this was just in the past tense that this happened, and that in the present tense people associate it. Which means, because there's no extra words that are cluing us in that we're shifting time frames, like word yesterday or in the past, that means that this should be, in fact, present tense. So make sure you're checking for your verb tense. You need to use the same verb tense throughout the piece. Now let's check on subject-verb agreement. Subjects and verbs must agree in number. In other words, if we have a singular subject, we need a singular verb. If we have a plural subject, we need to make sure we're also using that plural verb form. Make sure, again, you're checking these, especially in your notes. Obviously in your poetry as well, but I would find that within our notes, when we're paraphrasing, it's sometimes easy to make that mistake when we're trying to put someone else's words into our own. This practice says to find an error with subject-verb agreement and select the verb and type it correctly. High heels can cause a number of health problems, such as blisters, ankle sprains, and back pain, but women around the world continues to wear them. Now in this, we have a compound sentence, which means we have two subjects and verbs. We have the subject high heels, and the verb can cause. Now in this case, high heels is plural, and can cause is plural. How do we know? Well, we talked about how regular verbs and regular nouns are opposites. Regular nouns have that S ending, and regular verbs do not have an S ending for the plural. Now down here we have an irregular formed plural noun subject, women. We don't say womans with an S ending. We use the E for the plural. So we have a plural subject. We need to make sure we have a plural verb. Remember we said that regular plural verbs are drop the S because only subjects have S endings, and that verbs actually carry the opposite trend. So when we use the S ending continues, we're actually using that singular verb. So it needs to be continue. But women around the world continue to wear them. So again, keep in mind, we need to double check and make sure that our subjects match up and agree in number with our verbs. And we also need to make sure that our verbs, when we're using our verb tense, we stay consistent with that. If we're using the present tense, which we should in our research writing, because present tense is what you want to make sure all your notes are written in, we keep present tense throughout every note that we have compiled for our research questions. We choose our tense in our poetry writing, but we need to make sure that we are keeping that same consistent tense throughout, unless, of course, we are using those clue words that show we're transitioning to a different time frame. And then it would be appropriate to change the tense. But that's the only way, is if proper clue words are used. So please make sure as you're writing your poetry and research, you're double checking your conventions areas.